Hi guys, today we're gonna paint these grapes. Fun fact, they're mainly painted with two colors. Ultramarine blue, kinda use a lot of that, and carmine. And of course a lot of white. The only exception is this area where we also use some phthalo green and yellow for a popping touch. Let's have a look how we made this. I started out with mixing a lot of ultramarine blue with carmine red. This creates a very dark purplish color, which I'm putting on here right now. Getting in those general shapes first with the shadows. I'm keeping my paint rather thin here still, except for the parts where I know that it's going to be very dark. This way you see it's more purplish, and if I put a thicker layer on it, it gets more dark, more towards the black side. Now it's time to add some of the midtones. This is basically the same color pile I just made before, but then added some white to it. And I'm playing around a bit with variations. Here and there I add a touch of more blue to it, and there a touch of more red. Keeping that playfulness in there makes for nice dimensions in your paintings. Often I tend to mix quite some colors before I start painting, but as I'm basically just using two colors here plus white, it's very easy to mix on the go as well, making it a very liberating experience to paint with such a limited palette. Often when I put in my background color, in this case the light blue, I like to let it air a bit, meaning that you still see a bit of the underlayer show through. You have this beautiful warm undertone, and that really brings the whole piece together, I feel. Same thing goes for the grapes. Remember that we put all those dark colors, those purplish shades in there, also rather thinly, so you still see that background color show through, that bright color. That's a burnt sienna, by the way. But it makes your painting breathe. It doesn't suffocate in itself. Keeps it open and fresh. Later on, I still need to add some twigs there and branches, so I'm very careful where I'm putting my paint in the background, leaving a lot of open areas there. It's not really a hole yet, but we'll get to that soon enough. No worries. By using such a limited palette as well, you don't have to worry too much about getting paints muddy. It's okay to blend a bit here and there, to use wet on wet paint and have them mix on your panel in this case. To knock down the color a little bit, I made a new mixture and added a little bit of yellow ochre to it, which is a yellow. So we have a blue, a red and a yellow mixed together, so you get a bit more towards the middle of the color wheel. The grayed down version, and you can play around with that in any direction you'd like, but you can mute down colors a bit. Try to experiment with that. My target for this painting is not to have a photorealistic piece, but to learn more about the colors and the subject, and not unimportantly, to have fun in painting. For now, the painting is still a bit flat, but it's going to take a turn right about now, where we're defining the shapes and adding in some light touches. Because the light moves around with these shapes, then you can finally see that these are starting to look like grapes. And an important part to keep in mind when painting is that you always need to get through that ugly stage. That stage where you think, oh, I started something I cannot handle, or it's not gonna be good at all. Just continue, go through with it. Keep going until you're satisfied. Or keep going until you say, well, this is really never gonna work out anymore. I'm gonna start over from scratch. Or just move to a different subject perhaps. But you will notice, slowly but surely, you will be getting more confident in what you paint and in how you paint. Now it's time for me to work on the branches. And this is basically yellow ochre with the phthalo green and a touch of blue. Doing it lightly. I don't want to focus on these branches. I only want to have the focus on one part in particular. And that's coming up in just a second, as you will see. So for now, I'm just muddling around here, putting in those shapes. Let's slow down a moment. This is the actual speed what I'm painting with when I'm getting to finer details. I'm paying attention to it. Don't be fooled by the speed of a video because it's just sped up not to have you watch for hours and hours on end to still keep some interest. Putting a very light value here. There's some cadmium yellow in this picture as well. And you know what makes this really pop? It's that we have this very bright green in front of a very dark red background. Hey, guess what? Dark red background and a bright green. We have red and green, which are complementaries, so that makes it pop extra much. So I'd really encourage you to play around and think of your paintings. And before you even touch the brush to the canvas or whatever surface you might work on, think ahead. How do you want to approach your piece? Is there any space to play around with complementary colors or nice areas of contrast? Think ahead. Make a small planning in your head. But don't limit yourself too much to it though. It's still, for a big part, about having fun. So when I paint a smaller piece like this, I'm not too harsh on myself. I just enjoy the process and I try to learn from it. And I don't go into too much detail because you could easily spend a full day on painting these grapes. But that's not my target. I want to have it loose. I want to have it lively and I want to have a learning experience. So this was painted in about 1 hour and 15 minutes real time, spread out over the day. A little bit during my lunch break, a little bit after work. And then I was satisfied with the result, then I quit. If I wouldn't be satisfied, I could either choose to, say, well, forget about it. It's a learning experience. What will I do next time differently? Or I could decide, no, tomorrow I'll have another look at it with fresh eyes. But in this case, I was satisfied with the end result. If you're feeling inspired, please join me in the Food Paint Challenge where you can paint the same reference. It's over on Instagram, but I'll also post it here on YouTube. Happy painting. And if there's any questions, please feel free to ask them to me in the comments below. And of course, a like and subscribe would be highly appreciated.